KFIZ News Time, 8:09. Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Ron Rademann from Rademann Stone and Landscape Company in studio, along with Master Gardener Carol. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We got a kind of a little brisk morning. We got the sun, but little breeze again. It's been a windy spring so far.
Very windy spring.
But the forecast sounds pretty good for planting, doesn't it? It's time to get those cool crops out there, the ones that don't like heat, because we at least have that kind of temperature going on right now.
Actually, the 10, 14-day outlook, which is, as everybody knows, that's kind of what I look at more so than looking out the window each morning.
Right.
And there's only, they're talking like in the next 10, 12, 14 days, there's only a couple days where it's not expected to be into the 70s. And those couple days are 67 and 68. So we're definitely moving in the right direction towards spring. When you've got that many days in a row forecasted into the 70s, even if they're wrong on a couple, they aren't usually that wrong. And so that's kind of unusual here for, May 11th today. So that, you don't, a lot of times we get towards Memorial Day and we don't have weather near that nice on Memorial Day. And here we're having it, in the 2 weeks leading up to Memorial Day weekend. So
when I did my little spiel with our junior master gardeners at the campus on Thursday, we planted our first stuff. So I was telling them all about the cool crops and why you have to do this and so on. But last year when I gave that spiel, it was 92 degrees.
Oh, goodness.
So we had lots of stuff bolting. Maybe we can talk about bolting after a while and what that means. But a lot of the things like the radishes and the lettuce and that, they just think they're going to die, and then they want to make seeds, and so they grow these big, huge stems, and things are bad when you get started out in 92-degree weather. Yeah.
Well, we had that 1 week last year, early, that it was in the 90s and not just for a day or two.
No.
We had 4 or 5 out of 6 days or something like that. And I don't remember the exact days of that.
It would have been the same as this last week, like 9/10, because May 9th is officially the last frost day, as far as their maps and all that to show you. So, yes, that was Thursday when we planted. So, yeah. But it was warmer, but still, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, it just seems like like everybody says, every year it's a little bit different.
It is.
But that is unusual to be 90s, but it's unusual even to have this many 70s at this time of year. So
it's been really nice.
And I'll put in a plug right away for the Master Gardeners plant sale, too, because it's happening today. They'll be open at 9, so you can listen to the rest of the show and get yourself right out on the road and out there. There's lots of things. I looked yesterday.
You can drive there now and just sit in your car.
They couldn't listen to us until it opens, because I think there might be a line. Usually there is right away at 9, because people forget and think it's 8, so then they're out there early, but yes.
And where do they have to go for that again?
At the Cow Palace at the fairgrounds.
Awesome.
And it's all plants that the Master Gardeners, it is nearly all plants that Master Gardeners start themselves, or they had the advantage of having both greenhouses at the UW available for them this year, so they started a lot of plants there to sell.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So it's good.
How long have you guys been doing that?
Oh, forever.
Long enough, right? As long as you can remember.
I'll ask Patty. Ask Patty that next time when she comes, because she has a lot more history on the plant sale than I do.
Of course, our phone lines are open for your questions, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. You can also email a question in, kfizstudio@gmail.com. Include a photo or two if you'd like to. That always makes things a little bit easier to answer. I know I had my grass finally cut this past week, so a little fun story about me. I cut grass growing up as a kid here in Fond du Lac. It was a great part-time job. I got $10 to cut my mom's, $10 to cut the neighbors, and then I'd ride my bike to 12th Street and cut my aunt's, and that was another $10. So $30 a week cash. That's not bad, for a kid growing up. And each lawn was about an hour, so you just throw a little a Walkman on. Those younger listeners out there have no idea what I'm talking about, but this little headphone on and listen to a radio or a cassette tape. I'm really dating myself now, already talking about cassette tapes, but I did that for many years, and then my dad had a vacant house in Oshkosh, so he moved out of state for work, but he kept the home in Oshkosh. And, of course, you got to cut the grass still, right? So I'm living in Green Bay, and every 2 weeks I'd make the drive down for a couple of years and cut that lawn in Oshkosh. So when I got my house up in the Howard area in Brown County, I said, I'm treating myself. I'm going to hire a guy to cut my grass because I did it enough growing up as a kid. So I got a guy, he comes on his rider, and then you got, his guy that does the trimming and the blowing. And, I mean, it takes them like 20 minutes. And it's fantastic. But I'm typically the black sheep of the neighborhood because I have this service. And not that I couldn't hire him earlier, but it's just it takes me calling him to tell him to come over for the first time. Oh. He's not touring the neighborhood. So the young guy who lives next to me, and I think we may have talked about this on the show before, he is overboard with cutting the lawn. He cuts it like sometimes every 5 days, and he cuts it way too short. I mean, to the point where it's like...
bald.
It is, yes. And so then he and I share a strip on one side of my driveway. And so, because if you look at the rest of my yard, the grass doesn't really grow a whole lot. So the normal part of the yard doesn't look horrible. But then when you look at that little strip of mine next to his baldness, and it's then it sticks out like a sore thumb. So I've been thinking about picking up a push mower.
Just mowing that strip.
Well, and I actually asked, I had a party last year. And I asked him, hey, I don't know when my lawn guy's going to show up next. So, because that's the one nice thing about my guy. It's not contracted. It's just whenever it needs it. So I appreciate that because it's saving me money, right? I mean, there's sometimes we have drought. He may not cut my grass for a whole month. And I mean, that's just how little it grows. I'm not out there watering it at all. But I asked the neighbor guy, would you cut that strip for me? I'll give you some money. I'll buy you some beer. I mean, whatever you want. Oh, I enjoy cutting the grass. I'll do it for free. And I had implied doing that every single time he cuts it. He didn't get that, or maybe he did because I had my daughter and we had gone out to dinner and we were coming back. And I said, we knew that the guy was starting to cut his grass when we had left. And I said, ooh, he better adjust the mower height. Otherwise, when he gets to my part, that thing is going to clunk out because my grass is just way too high for being as low as he is. Well, sure enough, we're pulling back into the neighborhood, and he's got his mower tipped over, and he's trying to. So obviously, the thing clunked out. He got it done eventually. He never cut it again after that. So I either he didn't hear me that I asked him to do it every single time, or he said, forget this because this thing is wrecking my mower. But it finally got cut, but the worst part, and what I brought this up for, was the dandelions. So those things, if it weren't for those, I think actually I probably could have gone a little bit longer without mowing. So now that it has been mowed, is there anything I should do about the dandelions? Am I okay? Do you not recommend anything?
So you have dandelions, or he has, or you just mowed them off?
He just mowed them off, yeah.
Well, you could still, spray them. You could still do your step 2 here yet right now. And that's hard on a lawn. It doesn't really matter what height you mow at so much at this time of year because we're getting pretty regular rains, and typically it's not hot. And even when we talked earlier about it being in the 70s, that's not really hot.
Right.
And, so I mow a little lower at this time of year too. But what's not good is to, mow it high one time and low the next and back and forth. Pick a height and try to stick with it.
And he does that. Yeah, he's got the same height every single time.
Because if you,
and he cuts it a little bit higher. He does cut a little bit higher.
Getting a little bit better at it.
No, I'm talking about my guy, not the neighbor kid.
Okay.
Neighbor kid's low. My guy always cuts it at a real nice, comfortable height.
Yeah.
But the dandelions, can he still spray them at some point too if you want to do that?
Oh, sure. Even if you've mowed, you could still spray.
I could.
Especially in that strip where it's painfully obvious.
Yeah, right?
But see there, even if you mow the flowers off, the leaves are still there,
right.
And that's what you want to spray anyway. the flowers, it's kind of too late if they're flowering and seeding out, but the rest and dandelions are biennials, so if you spray it, you'll kill off.
I was just going to say, so that's, I mean, we were seeding out. I mean, we were at that point. Is it too late then because of that or no?
Well, those dandelions that they're going to start growing, but they're not going to really flower this year.
Okay.
So those you'd be okay on yet, because you'll have to spray those next year. Because if you're spraying now, you're only going to kill the dandelions that are there. The new seeds that are coming up aren't going to really.
Okay.
They aren't going to come up in time to spray anymore now.
What should I be getting for a spray you recommend?
Well, like at Rademann's, we've got some, Weed Be Gone and different, anything like that, and that you could mix up and spray either with a hose end sprayer. We've got some different ones there. I like to use the hose end sprayers just because let them do the thinking as far as, they calculate the chemical that's coming out and all that instead of trying to mix it and figure out if you should be putting 1 ounce, 2 ounces, or 3 ounces in your 1 gallon, 2 gallon, or 3 gallon sprayer.
Right. No, I would be the same way.
And it's not really that difficult, but then you don't even have to, you just take the hose, hook it up to your garden hose, stretch it out to the corner, and then just work your way backwards and towards the house, and you're pretty well done at that point in time.
And you want the weed be gone because you want the weeds to be gone, but your grass to be there.
Right.
You don't want to use Roundup and have
grass
nothing.
dead. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, just make sure.
Some people do make that mistake, sadly.
Yeah,
yes.
That's not a good mistake to make.
No.
Well, and we don't even have Roundup at Rademann's because it's a little bit. The Roundup they have a little Roundup family now, and they've got it. Can be confusing because you can spray some Roundups on your lawn, and some Roundups you spray on your lawn, it'll kill your grass. So I don't even like to promote Roundup because to me it's confusing. And if you have it on the shelf, you can get things mixed up in a hurry sometimes if you're not, reading the label carefully.
Exactly.
So at Rademann's, we don't have Roundup. We have Cleanup, which kills grass, and then we have the different weed killers that will kill off the weeds and not the grass. So it's a little simpler, in my opinion.
And is that typically one and done as far as application, or do you have to apply it a few times? Or depends on watch and see.
Yeah, well, if you've already sprayed a couple weeks ago, which you could have this year because the dandelions were appearing, you could hit them again a second time here, yet in May, because you'll after 3 weeks you'll have a second crop germinating, so like that. So yes, you probably could spray twice. Now, if you're spraying right now, by the time if you wait another 3 weeks, there isn't going to be much left there.
Right.
So it kind of just depends when you went out and did it the first time. Same thing with step 2. If you put step 2 down a couple weeks ago already, which you could have, because we had a little bit of an early spring, and now we're still having a good, 70s spring, 70 degrees here for the next couple of weeks. You could put a second application of step 2 down, which would kind of knock off any of that second wave of weeds that came up since they germinated and started growing since you put your first application of step 2 down. So a lot of times, we have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You can, in some cases, you can use step 2 twice, and then that moves step 3 back a little bit, which is fine too. Or you can put step 3 down twice if the weather is right come June and July. So, but you have to almost, every year is a little different, and every area some areas it can be different in Fond du Lac and different in Oshkosh too, or different in Howard or Green Bay.
Right.
Because, we can get hit with some thunderstorms that roll through here that may or may not hit in Green Bay. So, some of the things that we talk about here on Saturday mornings, they're, you have to kind of listen between the lines, so to speak, because, we do have different advice for different parts of Wisconsin, and we don't really pay too close of attention. If you're further out, then I don't always know what's going on either as far as that goes. So, but for right now, pretty much anywhere, if you put step 2 down a couple of weeks ago, I'd go ahead and put it down again in another week or 10 days, because the conditions would, if you got weeds, if you don't see any weeds growing,
no need
then don't bother. But if there were some that escaped and you're seeing them, go ahead and put a second application down. So
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the advice. And we're time for our first break already.
Already.
So we'll take a break. Remind everybody that if you tuned in late, you can watch us, listen to us on YouTube, Landscape Smart 24, season 24, and we'll pop right up. Or otherwise, Rademann's is open this morning. You can stop on out. We're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac. Easiest way is to follow Highway 41 and then get off at County Trunk B, and we're right there to the east on the crest of the hill.
KFIZ News Time, 8:28. Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Call in with your questions, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. You can also email questions to kfizstudio@gmail.com. Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Carol are in studio, and we do have somebody on the phone, so let's go to the lines. Good morning. What's your name and what's your question?
My name is Daryl, and my question is, I think a couple of weeks ago you said that once the tulips are done blooming, you cut them right off at the ground level, leaves and all. Is that correct?
No.
Oh.
No, you can cut the stem off, but you want to let those leaves or those bulbs will not get enough energy to make pretty flowers next year.
Oh.
So you leave them there until they start looking wilty. They'll turn to a really pale yellow, and then you can just pull them out, and the bulb won't come out, but it'll come loose from the bulb. And then so that'll take maybe another 3 or 4 weeks before they start dying back like that.
Oh,
Plant something else in front of them.
Yeah.
But the leaves will turn yellow, and then they'll kind of like Carol said, you won't really have to cut them off. They'll just come right off in your hand, or they'll just kind of let loose, or you can hit them with a blower and blow them.
Right.
The leaves will almost disintegrate.
And sometimes I don't even have to pull them out or anything because they're hidden
They
by
kinda
some big
shrivel up
perennial that's right in front of them or something, so then I don't even bother. But no, you don't want to do that now. You don't want to cut those leaves off.
Okay. But the stems you can cut off though.
You could cut the stems off, sure.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Sure. Enjoy them.
Thanks for the call. That opens up a phone line. Call in now. You'll get right on the air, 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450.
I bought some different tulip bulbs this year. I bought a regular package. I don't think they last as long as they used to. I used to have them, all over, and now it seems they don't necessarily come back that easily after a couple years. Anyway, they're, I don't know what deluxe thing they were, but they look way more like a zinnia than they do a tulip. They have just whole lots of, a big bunch of, like mums almost.
More of a double flower.
Oh, double or triple
flower.
I don't know. It says double, but they are beautiful. I've never had those before. And the deer like them. They eat the tops off here and there. Yes.
We got another caller. Good morning. You are on Landscape Smart. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi. My name is Mary. And excuse me. I have the chicken hens, and I'm having all kinds of trouble with them. Sometimes they come back each year, and then other times they don't. So I got some new ones now. So can I put them outside and they'll come back next year or not?
That's a succulent.
Yes.
Hen and chicks is. It's like a little flower, very flat to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Mine come back. Well, they actually stay. It isn't like they even disappear like most perennials you think of that just are gone and then they just stay there in that same shape. Are you putting them directly in the ground or are you putting them outside in a pot?
I've done both.
Okay.
And I've had several friends that have the same problem. That's why I'm calling.
Okay. If you leave them in the ground, they do much better than putting a pot out there and trying to do it because then you have the whole freeze thaw with, almost daily. I don't know what else to tell you except that you hardly at all need to water them because they are a succulent. So a lot of times people have trouble with that because they way overwater them and then they mold or whatever they do and they're gone.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's generally a really tough thing. Is the soil good there, or is it like rock hard?
It's hard to say. I've had them in several different spots.
Okay.
They just don't go anywhere. They just...
They don't spread or anything either?
No, they don't.
Because usually if you put two out in about a month, you have a whole circle around them because I plant them, separately. And then that whole circle gets another circle around them.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what it would be. I don't think they need fertilizer or anything like that.
Are you losing them over winter or during the summer months?
Over winter.
Mm-hmm. It could just, the last few years we just haven't had any snow cover and things
That's
like
true.
that. They could be freezing out just because of and we've had so much more freezing and thawing because it's been warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if,
A little mulch
a
layer
little mulch or maybe some
in the fall.
Yeah, just some light marsh hay or straw or something just to cover them. And maybe once you get them going for a couple years, they'd be a little bit tougher than what a new one.
Yeah.
I'm kind of speculating here a little bit, but
yeah, several years ago I didn't have any problems, but boy, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been bad.
Do you think you could have critters coming and eating them?
No, they're still there.
They're still there. They just don't do well.
It's
Okay.
all wilted up and dead.
And I'm not sure. I've never really fertilized mine, but I'm sure if I throw fertilizer out on the rest of the stuff, they get some. But I've never really heard that they need a lot of that. But maybe you could try giving them a little boost with some, 10-10-10 or something. I don't know. Certainly not a lot, I don't think, because
and it might
succulents
help
do
them.
well.
Just even if you'd fertilize them, they'd have a little bit better root system, a little deeper root system.
Okay.
Like you could put, any like Miracle Grow or any of those water soluble
That would be true. That would be
fertilizers
better. Yes.
that you could use any time here now. And in more of a balanced one, again, 20-20-20 or
Okay.
Especially if you plant them always in the same place, it would be a good idea to use one of the fertilizers, like Ron just said, with the water soluble. You'll have a much better control of what you put there.
And then if they're healthier going into winter, that would, theoretically they'd have a better, stronger, deeper root system. And, so the same kind of holds true on all new perennials or all plants in general. If you have a better root system, they're going to handle these variable winters a little bit better. Because it's tough on perennials when we don't get any snow cover.
Yeah.
And you get all that freezing, a lot of freezing and thawing, and it's the top 2 or 3 inches that's doing all that freezing and thawing, and I think that's why you're losing them over the winter.
Yeah.
Especially if you have them in the open. I'm thinking now that some of mine are like under a tree, not under a big tree, but just a shrub, so they get shade more often in the day than sunshine. Maybe if yours are right out there in the open, that might be a little hard on them.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll try.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, even other, plants around them that can help, they catch the snow. And again, whether we're talking about hen and chicks or perennials or any, low growing plant that's you know, that they're just not deep rooted, and as we get so many, you know, these freezing and thawing cycles going on already, starting in the whole month of December and in January, and then in February, and again yet in March even, sometimes that's just tough on the plants. And if you have bigger plants or more protection around them, it kind of keeps the sun from shining there so it doesn't thaw out, and keeps it from, you know, and if it does freeze, it stays frozen a little longer.
Because if you think of it, a hen and chicks doesn't have a root system that's more than an inch deep.
Right.
So, yes, if that gets heaved up or something in the winter, I can see where they would die off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we go go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I was just going to say, before we go to our next break, we've got another call. We will go to them, and then when we come back from our break, we have an email from Jody in Fond du Lac. So I just want Jody to know we are going to get to her question after the break, but we'll take this call first. Good morning. You are on Landscape Smart. What's your name, and what's your question for Ron and Carol?
Good morning. My name is Dorothy. I bought 8 bags of bulk wood chips, and I was maybe halfway through when I flipped over this bag, and it's all mold on the back side. Are those chips usable, or must I throw them away?
No, I think you'd be okay. You know, because they were maybe stacked on a pallet or they got wet, but if you spread those out and they're open to the elements, so to speak, you know, the sun, the wind, that should burn that right off. So I would still go ahead and use them. You know, it should be fine.
Even if they stay in the shade?
Well, I think if you spread it out thin, you know, you're only if you're putting it in 1 inch thick, and, you know, that would be fine. You should get enough, you know, air circulation, enough wind that should burn that mold right away. I mean, if it persists, you could spray it with a fungicide or something like that, but I would just try it at first, because I don't think it would really be a problem.
Will it turn brown like the rest of them, or what color will they turn out to be?
Well, and that kind of depends what type, you know, because there's so many different types of wood chips. Did it say on those what type of material it actually is?
I can't tell you. I don't think I read. I just dumped them out.
Yeah, there's just, you know, they probably won't, you know, they're going to lose some of their color, but, you know, what color they would turn would depend on what type of actual wood product it is. So. Okay.
And how deep should I pour these chips?
Well, what are you putting them around, or?
Shrubs and evergreens and flowers.
And do you have like landscape fabric down?
Yes.
So you're kind of putting it over. There was some chips there earlier, and you're just putting this over the top.
That is correct.
Yeah. Then just as light a layer as possible, you know, maybe just another inch over the top should be enough.
Oh, boy. And I have about 3 or 4. Okay, I can pick up and share it around the other side of the house then. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, because you probably don't really want more than 3 inches total. So if you had 1 inch or 2 there already, then you add another inch or 2, and that would be enough. If you
thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, too much isn't good either. So, you know, ideally, usually around 3 inches is ideal for most shrubs. Now, perennials would be a little bit less. You know, you'd only maybe put 1.5 inches, but most shrubs or plant beds, 2.5, 3 inches would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, see that one side of the house is all hydrangeas back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so about 3 inches is enough. So if you had, what I like to do is fluff up the mulch that you had first, re-rake it, re-level it, you know, and then just put 1 inch over the top of what you had.
Okay. Okay. Exactly. I'm going to correct what I just did.
Okay.
Thank you so
Great.
much. Thank you. Okay, goodbye.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the call.
Yeah, too much is never
No.
never good either. You think again, it's kind of one of those. Well, 1 inch is good, 2 inches twice as good, and 3 inches 3 times as good. Well, it's not really the case. If you've got a couple inches there, then you don't really need much more.
Or you will have mold.
Yes.
Whether it came with the bag or not, you will have mold. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we'll get to Jody's email after our next commercial break.
So, yeah, it's Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. But Rademann's open today until noon, Monday through Friday till 4:30. And you can still get a delivery today. Put your mother to work. 920-922-7612, or stop on out just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac on County B.
KFIZ News Time, 8:44. Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Phone lines are open. You call in now, you will get on the air. 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. We also take emailed questions, kfizstudio@gmail.com, and we're going to get to Jody's in just a bit, but Ron Rademann in studio along with Master Gardener Carol, and you guys have the Master Gardener plant sale taking place today. Give us all those great details.
Right, so it's 8:45. Now you could get in your car and listen to the rest of the show on your way to the Cow Palace at the fairgrounds, and the Master Gardeners have their plants out there for sale. There's flowers, there's plants. They even have a garden stuff area where they have house plants you can buy. There's pots there, things like that. So give it a try.
Everything
See what you
need.
think. Everything you need.
So the big question is, though, when this show is done, are you going over there
Yes, I am.
to take pictures and sign autographs?
No, I don't think so. But I will be standing at the herb table.
All right. So if someone wants to say
That's-
hi to Carol,
Yes.
go to the herb table.
That's right.
We do have
Thank
somebody.
you.
We do have somebody on hold. We're going to get to you in just a bit. But Jody from Fond du Lac sent in an email to kfizstudio@gmail.com asking, how often should you aerate the lawn?
Well, once a year should be enough, and it's kind of past the time for that. The best time to really aerate is in fall, actually September, October. The second best time is spring if you didn't do it in the fall. So, but it's really too late now because you've got the grass is growing and there's a lot going on. You want to kind of catch it when your lawn is going the other way, shutting down for the season,
Or just starting up, or
early enough. Mm-hmm. And it's always a little trickier in the spring because if it's too wet, too soft, too muddy, sometimes it doesn't work as well as it does if in the fall a lot of times. So, one way to always tell if it's a good time to do it is if you drive around the countryside and you see the golf courses doing it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader.
Yes.
The professionals are doing it, in
Makes
the fall,
sense. Right.
and it's usually, the middle of October a lot of times, but you could do it a little earlier than that. But generally around here, middle of October. So
Just like the golf courses. Remember to
I guess so.
replace the divots in your yard as well, right?
When you drive by the golf course and it went from green and you see all these little, brown pellets out there, then they just finished aerating. So,
Great
or you
advice.
could call the golf courses, I
There
guess,
you
Ask
go,
them
yeah.
when they're going to do it.
and ask them when are you going to aerate. Then you'll find out the best time each year.
Yes.
So
We got
that was a hint.
There we go. That's a great hit. That's
It
a great
is.
hit. We're going to go to the phones. Good morning. You're on Landscape Smart. What's your name and what's your question?
My name is Mary, and I've got a lot of onions from last year's pot planting, and they've greened out, and but the bulbs are soft. Am I able to plant those, or are they no good?
Do you mean that you had onions come back again from last year?
No, I picked them last year, and I dried them, and they stayed all winter in my fruit cellar, but now they sprouted out.
Oh, yes.
If they're starting to sprout,
I guess you could, but you're not going to get as nice a bulb as you got before because that whole outside layer is going to like rot off and then it'll grow out from the middle and you really won't have more than you have right now.
Okay.
So I think you'd be better off
soft.
eating those and then starting fresh.
Okay.
Because we had some in our garden beds at the UW, and the whole outside part was really mushy, but it was growing a new stem up to come out of the ground. But it's not going to be as good as if you started from either, well, I don't know if you're not going to do seeds, but the little onion sets or the plants from the greenhouse or anything you would have started to do that, I think would be better than trying to replant those old ones.
Okay. Okay, I think I'll toss them.
I bet the middle part's really hard yet. You could use that up.
But these are small. They're not the big ones anymore.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So by the time you get the edge off of them, there's
Yes,
nothing
There's
left.
not going to be much left.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
Bye.
Yeah, some things just aren't worth the, you work so hard and then you get nothing out of it. So you're better off just tossing it and starting over.
It's the same thing with potatoes. We planted potatoes with the kids, and in the soil, well, there were little greens coming up, but we weren't going to plant them in that bed, but we dug them out. And we had one that was like a good-sized baking potato in the ground, and it had 6 shoots coming out above the ground to try to grow. So we split it in half and planted it with the new ones, and now I'll be really curious if that's going to make a good potato or not, because you plant potatoes by cutting little potatoes up and the eyes start to grow, and that's what you get. So I'm really curious if it's going to work, but the kids were really excited.
That would, because that would expand into a whole potato plant.
I would think so.
And then you should
grow
get all
new
new,
roots.
then you'd get new roots and new tomatoes,
It was
new
really-
potatoes.
It was pretty mushy. It was pretty mushy, but the kids thought it was exciting because I've never seen that before where potatoes came back. But they're raised beds. They're pretty sheltered up there. It's close to the building. I'm not sure, but it was very exciting.
I bet it was.
Well, it's one of those teaching moments that you just luck into.
Right. As for the onions, they give me heartburn. So, yeah, throw them away and don't even plant them. Don't even plant them. That's what I say. That's what I say. Let's get in our final break here quickly because I know someone's always going to usually call at least once in the in that final segment. So 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450. We just have a few minutes left here in the program. We are going to take that final break, but if you call in now, you will be on right after that commercial break.
So yeah, just another reminder, if you're tuning in now, you can go back and listen to the rest of the beginning of the show on YouTube. Just search for Landscape Smart Season 24. Should pop right up. Otherwise, you still got time to head on out to Rademann's, open till noon today, just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, east on 41 on County Trunk B.
KFIZ News Time, 8:53. Got about 6 minutes left in Landscape Smart, presented by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Ron Rademann and Master Gardener Carol in studio, and we do have someone on the line. Go ahead. What's your name and what's your question?
Yeah, Dave, asking about, I want to try a couple tomatoes patio tomatoes in pails. What's the best? I know I should put some drain holes in the bottom and you put some rock in there and then dirt, or what are your recommendations?
What you just said, actually. You do need to put some rocks in the bottom. And then depending on how big your pail is, I'm not sure. Do you mean like just a bucket? Or do you have like a larger pot?
Pail,
Like a 5-gallon pail?
Yeah.
A 5-gallon pail, okay. Put the rocks in the bottom. Put some holes in the bottom, if you can. And then the rest soil and plant in there. Some tomatoes, though, are going to need a trellis or something. So do you know what kind of tomatoes you're going to get?
No, I don't.
Okay, because...
Yeah, maybe a smaller growing one.
Right, because they're determinate, which means they have a determined height they could get to, and they're going to stay kind of round and maybe 2 to 3 feet high. And then there's indeterminates that can get to be 10 or 12 feet high on a trellis. and that's not what you're going to want if you're doing this in a bucket.
Okay.
I had some friends last year who planted them in pots, and they kept blowing over because they got so high, even and especially if you put a trellis in at that point. But yes, so pick a type of tomato that's going to be smaller.
Okay. Well, the rocks would help that too, keep it from blowing over, right? Put some
Yes.
weight in
Yeah, and then make sure that you're using, you can't like fill it with like road gravel or screenings or sand. It's got to be like pieces of stone.
Correct.
Or,
Small stone.
smaller stones or pebbles more so than something that would pack, because you want the water to drain through that out the holes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
you put any kind of barrier in there, like coffee filters or anything between the rocks and the dirt, or?
Well, that wouldn't hurt either. You could, put a layer of something that would be permeable, like that, landscape fabric or anything that that the water would pass through. Or you could probably even take an old pillowcase or something like that. You probably wouldn't be able to use it after you're finished, but something like that would maybe be easier than, because that would fit in there a little bit easier, and it would just keep the soil from filtering down into those rocks.
Yeah.
So.
And when you pick your plants, pick some that have like smaller tomatoes. You don't necessarily want to do the beefsteak ones. I think that would get really tippy.
Yeah, I was thinking more like a cherry tomato.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Or aroma is really good that way. They're a smaller tomato.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can head right over to the plant
Let's sale and buy
pick,
some.
and pick those up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the call. And we could take one more quick one. We got about 2.5 minutes before we got to close up shop here. 923-1450 or 1-888-900-1450 if you want to squeeze in your call here real quickly.
And if not, I just want to give the warning that you need to harden your plants off. If you buy them from a greenhouse, they will not be used to they're used to the sunshine, but you need to set them outside in the pots they're in now, not necessarily in the bright sunlight to start with, but at least 2 or 3 days after you purchase them. A week would be even better to let them harden off a little bit before you stick them in the ground. If you buy them and they're already sitting outside in the sunshine, that won't be as big an issue at all. But if you started them in your basement or somewhere else, they need to be hardened off. And then they need to get used to the wind. So hopefully you had a fan on them when you were growing them, so they're used to that. But otherwise, they need a little care. You don't just take them from a inside area to the outside and plant them. And now it's going to be cool, so it won't be as big an issue as it was if it was 90 degrees. But keep them hardened off, yes.
Kind of an east side location is a little bit better. You get that heat, the morning sun on them, but not the late afternoon. Right. They can kind of adapt a little bit better that way.
Especially if you have a plant that, you had on your windowsill inside up to this point. It's going to need a little time outside, not into the ground yet, or in the full sunlight for at least a couple days.
It's closing time.
Sounds like they're playing our song.
Yeah.
So, thanks to everyone for the calls, emails. Rademann's open today until noon, Monday through Friday till 4:30. You can stop on out. I know Brock is there today, so he's got the answers to all the questions. If he doesn't, he calls me. I think Joe is there this morning, so got a good gang out there. Or Monday through Friday till 4:30. Or give us a call. You can still get a delivery today, 920-922-7612.
Or head on over to the Cow Palace.
For the plants, yes.
Plant sale going on. Master Gardener plant sale. Landscape Smart, Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Polka is next. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.